Everyone, it's likely the last day that abortions will be performed in Fargo. The ban is expected to go into effect tomorrow in North Dakota. Wednesdays are when the Red River Women's Clinic has abortion services available, so it's not unusual to see more activity there, like protesters. But people say today things felt different. Valley News Team's Aaron Walling spent the day downtown talking to people about the reproductive rights issue. He joins us live now with the latest. Aaron.
Stacy, people are preparing for what could be the final day for the only abortion facility here in the state of North Dakota. And there are protesters still out here counting down the final hours. I'm going to step out of the way so you can see behind me. Obviously, protesters are holding signs up while the escorts are in multicolored vests. Now, while there wasn't a large amount of people protesting earlier today and so far right now, there were still a lot of emotions running high outside the clinic. After the U.S. Supreme Court reversed their decision on Roe v. Wade, states like North Dakota had trigger laws in place which would ban abortions. Now, tomorrow that ban goes into effect, presumably, and as the state's Attorney General Drew Wrigley puts it, the clinic must cease operations on the 28th. A lot of emotions are running high still, and I spoke with some about the clinic closing here soon.
I have friends in Minnesota and Illinois and Nevada and all sorts of places that have abortions still legal in their states. And those friends and those states are gearing up to be able to support the women who are going to need to seek those services there.
Babies will be saved, won't be dying here in North Dakota because of abortion. And that's very good news for us. And we're thankful for that.
Well, the clinic will be closing its doors here soon. Reporting live in Fargo, Aaron Walling, Valley News Live.
All right, thanks, Aaron. Now, the clinic is $40,000 away from their $1 million goal as they look to move operations over to Moorhead. For people who have been threatened or discriminated against for seeking an abortion, the Justice Department has a new web page to help. The department's Reproductive Rights Task Force set this page up yesterday on the DOJ's website. The site gives direction on where to report threats. Those reports will go to the FBI or the Department of Health and Human Services for investigation, depending on the situation. In other news this afternoon, a Minnesota woman is accused of abusing and neglecting animals at her home. 40-year-old Michelle Karch of Fox Home is charged with multiple animal abuse charges. Authorities say they found 2 dead dogs at her home and another dog incredibly malnourished. She originally said the dogs were sick, but a veterinarian says that's not likely. Officials also found cats, a pony, and a horse without food at her home. The house involved in a major drug raid in South Fargo already has crews working to secure the condemned building. The city says no one's allowed to live there after inspectors found mold and major structural issues at the home. Neighbors say the house in the 900 block of 5th Street South has been trouble for quite some time. It was the site of a standoff yesterday that landed 4 people in jail on charges ranging from open warrants to drug charges. Let's go to Chief Meteorologist Hutch Johnson now for a first look at your forecast. Hutch?
Thanks, Stacy, and good afternoon, everyone. As we close out our workday today, we're starting to see a few clouds and puffy ones at that, rumbling through the skies north and east of Grand Forks. And they're heading in your general direction in Grand Forks tonight. Our northern counties having a chance at some hit and miss rumbles of thunder. There they are, clearly moving out of Canada through Baudette and out of Roseau County. They extend from northeast North Dakota along and north of Highway 2. And again, these stretch all the way out towards International Falls. We have a smattering of light, spotty sprinkle and thunder shower activity here in our central Minnesota counties. Hit and miss stuff at best, and really just a few drops to wet your windshield. Brief, heavy downpours from these and some strikes of lightning moving southeast at 25 miles per hour will carry them over the Red Lakes area, heading out of the Marshall County area into Pennington County and toward Grand Forks. So here's the line of showers. They're moving in that general direction toward Thief River Falls by 427 on towards Chirac and St. Hilaire as we close out the 4 o'clock hour. Cool 50s and 60s north where you see the greens and yellows, 70s for the rest of us to near 80 south. Our chance of showers here in the Southern Valley very low. Central Minnesota may see passing sprinkles, so keep that in mind. And we stay in the 70s until, well, just close to sunset, and then we'll be comfortably cool once again. The heat is set to return. Stacy will talk about that and a few more thunder chances, and we'll track tonight's activity for you in hour-by-hour style in a moment.
All right. Thanks, Hutch.
Yeah.
The last two former Minneapolis police officers involved in the 2020 killing of George Floyd were sentenced today in federal court. Adam Duxter has more from St. Paul.
The mother of former Minneapolis police officer J. Alexander Kueng expressed remorse to George Floyd's family after a judge sentenced Kueng to 3 years in prison for violating the civil rights of the 46-year-old black man.
Alex's family is so sad that we will not be able to get to see him for a while, but we will see him again. And it does not escape us that Mr. Floyd's family and friends will not.
Another ex-officer, Tu Tao, who said in court that he repented while in jail, received 3.5 years behind bars for his role in Floyd's death. Both were convicted in February of depriving Floyd of his right to medical care, while Derek Chauvin pressed his knee into Floyd's neck for 9.5 minutes. They were also convicted of failing to intervene to stop Chauvin.
I'm saddened, but I suppose we have to take all these little small triumphs and know that we're going to move forward, even though they're just little crumbs that they kind of keep giving us.
Chauvin pleaded guilty last year and was sentenced to 21 years in federal prison. A fourth former officer, Thomas Lane, was sentenced last week to 2.5 years in prison.
The judge cited Kueng's rookie status in handing down a punishment that was lighter than what was called for in guidelines. He gave Tao, who had more experience, a longer punishment.
Both Kueng and Tao still face a state trial in October. Adam Duxter, CBS News, St. Paul, Minnesota.
And legal experts expect that they'll seek a plea deal that will let them serve both the federal and state sentences at the same time. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz today outlined his 10-year economic expansion plan for the state of Minnesota. The report was issued by a 15-member panel that includes business, labor, and nonprofit leaders. The governor launched the panel in September of last year to seek out opportunities for systemic change based on the needs of the public. Dozens of recommendations were made within 5 core commitments: people, communities, businesses, innovation, and infrastructure. President Biden ended his COVID-19 isolation today after testing negative for the virus. He delivered remarks in the Rose Garden to discuss his infection and his administration's progress against the pandemic. The president encouraged Americans to get their COVID-19 vaccinations and booster shots, but said despite precautions, will likely continue to get the virus.
The reality is that BA5 means many of us are still going to get COVID, even if we take the precautions. That doesn't mean we're doing anything wrong. Unfortunately, this COVID is still with us, as it has been for 2.5 years.
The president had taken Paxlovid over the course of his illness. The White House says he'll continue wearing a mask for 10 days anytime he's around others. The head of the World Health Organization now says men should consider reducing their sexual partners for the moment to avoid catching monkeypox. They say 98% of the monkeypox cases detected since May have been among men who have had sex with men. He called for those at risk to take a step to protect themselves. This comes as Minnesota has now confirmed 25 cases in the state. North Dakota has reported 1 so far in the eastern part of the state. Health experts say to help prevent further spread, you should avoid touching anyone who's infected. There are already vaccines for the disease, but supplies are limited right now. The Kremlin gave more context to its decision to end its association with the International Space Station after 2024. They made the announcement yesterday and now say rising tensions with its ISS partners over the war in Ukraine contributed to the decision. Those partners include the U.S., Canada, Japan, and the European Space Agency. Russia plans to develop a space station of its own instead. Interest rates are the topic of today's Consumer Alert. Today, the Federal Reserve raised rates for the 4th time this year to help curb inflation amid fears of a potential recession. The markets finished lower yesterday on those rate hike concerns, in addition to some disappointing earnings. Chris Van Cleve is in Wisconsin with more on how this affects our everyday expenses.
For the 4th time since March, the Federal Reserve is expected to hike interest rates later today. The potential 0.75 point increase would push the Fed's benchmark rate to its highest point in 4 years. Mark Zandi is the chief economist at Moody's Analytics.
It's going to cost more to get a mortgage. It's going to cost more to get an auto loan. It means that if you owe money on your credit card, you're going to have to start paying more on that because of the higher interest rate.
None of that sounds very good.
Well, it's not great, but it's necessary.
Necessary, the Fed says, to counter skyrocketing inflation, up 9.1% in June, but comes as the country flirts with recession. And according to AAA, 64% of adults have already changed their driving habits or lifestyle since March, combining errands and cutting back on dining out because of high prices at the pump, which, while falling again, a gallon of gas is still up nearly $1.20 in the last year. Food prices are also surging. Ground beef up 53 cents per pound. A gallon of milk, 59 cents.
When the electric bill goes up, when the cost of cash register tape goes up a little bit, everything goes up a little bit. We have to watch it very carefully, or we would be like out of business.
At Pinion Meats in Beloit, Wisconsin, owner Jason Turner is seeing his costs rise on seemingly everything.
I see people that are working and having to buy all this gas just to get back and forth to work. So we hate to raise the prices, but sometimes we have to.
Alrighty, ma'am, it's going to be $89.90.
Katria Ward says her grocery bill has jumped $150. She came here because she found a deal.
I went to another store. One ribeye there is $15. I come here, I get them a lot cheaper.
So you are comparison shopping?
Yeah.
The Biden administration points to unemployment levels at 50-plus year lows as a sign of a healthy economy. But GDP numbers out this week are expected to show a second consecutive quarter of negative growth, and that is often a key indicator of a recession. Chris Van Cleve, CBS News, Beloit, Wisconsin.
A bill designed to encourage more semiconductor companies to build chip plants in the U.S. passed the Senate today. The $280 billion bill was a key priority of the Biden administration. It includes federal grants and tax breaks for chip facilities. The legislation also directs Congress to significantly increase spending on high-tech research programs. The House vote is expected later this week before lawmakers return to their home districts in August. President Biden said the bill would create jobs and lower costs on a wide range of products from cars to dishwashers. Twitter is asking shareholders to approve Elon Musk's $44 billion takeover bid. The social media company has scheduled a September 13th vote on the matter. However, Musk is still trying to back out of the deal, while Twitter has asked a court to enforce their merger agreement. The case is slated to go to trial in October.